Hey, what is up everybody? Platform Disciple here, and today I'm going to bring you a video talking about my Infinity Wars wish list for features that I would like to see in the game, not related to the gameplay itself, that I think ought to be added. I wanted to gauge with all of you whether you agree with some of these things or not. And I also wanted to just mention here that I am bringing up features that I think are A, relatively easy to implement, and B, are ones that I think are not high priority for Lightmare right now that they're not already thinking of. Like, for example, a ranked mode and the Rift Run draft mode are obviously things that I want to see return, but Lightmare already knows that those things ought to return, so I don't feel the need to say what's already obvious. Before we get into that, I wanted to mention that in the previous video, I had talked a little bit about the distinction between kill and sacrifice, and that I had said with Nero that I felt that having the distinction between sacrifice and kill in Infinity Wars really only serves to confuse new players. However, somebody brought up to me that sacrificing characters doesn't cause players to lose morale. So there is a very significant reason to have sacrifice in the game, because there are situations where, from a game design perspective, like with Nero, you want to kill your own characters, and you don't want to punish players for killing their own characters by causing them to lose morale. So that's a bit of a side effect that would happen if you used the kill keyword instead, but by having sacrifice, you get around that. However, I do think I would like to see sacrifice be properly keyworded so that it appears on the right-hand side of the card when you open that card up the same way other keywords appear. Currently, it does not. And that keyword would just say, sacrifice kills a character, but no morale is lost. That being said, I think there is still some concern that sacrifice doesn't always behave in the ways that a new player might expect. So, first of all, shout out to this alternate art soul. Champion of Vengeance is available in the store for purchase right now, so check that out if you're interested. But what I'm bringing up Soul here because Soul has 2 lives, and Sacrifice goes straight through 2 lives, and I don't think that's obvious to most players. I would prefer for Sacrifice to just work exactly the same way as Kill, except morale cost isn't lost. Pretty much just that. I don't know if maybe that would cause some kind of balance concern somewhere, but I think that for the time being, it can be really startling for a newer player, or even a returning player, that their character with 2 lives, or their character that says that they should do something when they die, gets killed by a sacrifice effect, and it doesn't behave the way that a player would think it would. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say there. Let's get into my wish list real quick. And the start of the wish list is concerning ordering cards in your hand. And I'm going to jump into training here to demonstrate that. And we'll see that in just a second. Okay. And my camera here covers up a significant portion of the screen that we need to see. So I'm going to disappear for a minute here. But what I wanted to talk about is ordering the cards. Currently in Infinity Wars, if you drag a card and place it on another card, those 2 cards swap locations. For those of you coming from other digital card games, you would know that this is not the standard for how ordering cards behaves within digital card games. I think that changing to the standard would be appropriate just to make this difference Not like you can expect new players to be coming from other card games. You don't need to change the interface. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The way that I think a lot of people, including myself, would like it to behave is that when I take this Flame Dawn Aspirant and put it here on the Bombard, instead of this happening where they swap locations, I put it on the Bombard, and then every card moves down one. Not only is that, I think, how people expect and want it to behave, but also from a design standpoint, in Infinity Wars, often the leftmost card is the one that you're going to discard, and if you don't know how many cards are going to be in your hand at the end of the turn, you usually want to have your cards that you are most wanting to discard on the left-hand side and the cards you want to keep most on the right-hand side. And if you draw a card... well, we drew a Flame Dawn Aspirant, but if you draw a card that you want to keep, or discard, like let's say I draw into Distraction Zone, it's like, okay, well, I want to discard Distraction Zone the most, and I want to discard these three after. If I want to get Distraction Zone on the left-hand side of my hand and get the cards in the same order, I have to do this whole song and dance to make that happen. That, I think, should be changed. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is sound design. I think largely the game has some cool sound effects. However, we have a lot of unique characters, and those unique characters don't have cool sound effects. And I think I would like to see some or all of the unique characters get voice lines. And that doesn't need to happen all at once. It can happen in a piecemeal way. So let's listen to how Chlor sounds real quick. That was it. Chlor is a very iconic card, and I think it would be cool if when you played him, he might say something. So let's see what that might sound like.
I strike first.
I am not a voice actor, but I think that sounds okay. And I think we have enough people in our community that have reasonably high quality mics, and you don't have to be like a supremely good voice actor to make some of these things sound all right. You only need to record 1 or 2 seconds of audio, and you can take as many takes as you want. I think that would be cool, and I would like to see that for a lot of cards. I'll just demonstrate another one here in a sec. Like Vasir. Here's what he currently sounds like. That was it. Here's what he could sound like.
Finally, I am free.
I think that would be cool. Similarly, a lot of cards, and we're going to see this with Flux Capacitor, make noises when they have their effects. So I'm sure the AI here is going to use Flux Capacitor. It loves using Flux Capacitor. So Flux Capacitor makes a noise. As a matter of fact, Flux Capacitor makes a noise twice. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we know that it's possible to have cards' effects make noises, and those noises don't have to be the same noise that the card makes when they come into play, which means that we can have Vasir, who... he currently does this sound when he kills something, right? That wasn't much of a sound. What if, instead, he made this sound? One sec. I think that could be cool. And we have so many unique characters in the game, and I don't think you need to hire voice actors. It's a Band-Aid solution, and not every unique character needs to have its own unique sound, but you could start making some progress by getting some people from the community to submit sounds, and of course it can go through a review process where other members of the community can decide, like, hey, do we like the way this sounds? Because maybe we don't, or maybe we do. Yeah, that wraps that up. I would just like to see more unique sounds in the game, specifically voice lines for named characters. And I think there's some really low-hanging fruit, like the sleepers have unique characters. Anybody can make a sleeper's noise. I can make all kinds of gross noises, and if you put a little bit of an audio filter on there, it's gold. And yeah, so okay, enough with that. Let's talk about our last point, and this is the most intense part of this discussion, and this is one that I have had on my mind for years, that I have old videos talking about this, and I have had conversations with folks at Lightmare about this, and I think it's a real problem, and I think that it should be addressed, and that is leaderboards in Infinity Wars. Leaderboards in Infinity Wars always have rewarded exclusively the top N number of players, and that number is very small. It used to be top 100, and those rewards, the higher quality rewards, were really densely concentrated on like the top 10 of those top 100. Now it is top 50, and again, the quality rewards are really densely located on top 3. It is no secret that it is an important priority for this game to increase the size of its player base. And you are hampering doing that by setting yourself up for failure. Right now, the game only has maybe a couple hundred players. But let's say the next Kickstarter goes incredibly well and we end up with a few thousand players. If you only are rewarding like the top 5 or 10% of players with anything, that is a recipe for disaster. It's not sustainable. It's not smart. There's some other components of this. With only rewarding the top X number of players with meaningful rewards, and I want to clarify here. So the top 3 players get the gold stamped cards, and those are cool. Other players get not really much. I am not asking for you to increase the amount of gold I get for being top 10. Let's make that clear, because no amount of gold is really meaningful. People who perform and play the game at a certain level ought to be rewarded with the special reward, which is the gold stamped card. And I'm not saying this because I want gold stamped cards, because I have a gold stamped card. Let's just show you what that looks like. I've got a gold stamp card. I came in first, and that required me to play every day. However, the only reason that I was able to come in first is because other players did not get into the grindy matchup of just these 3 players that are actually trying to get the top are going to be miserable trying to beat each other out. Maybe I'm exaggerating. But if you are player number 3 and you are close with player number 4 in XP, and you are the player who goes from getting a gold stamped card to not getting a gold stamped card, that is an extremely negative experience. Very negative. And the difference in the amount that a player puts into the game between rank 3 and rank 4 can be minimal. You don't want the negative experience to occur for your top players. Another aspect of this is, if the point of the XP leaderboard is to try to get players to play more games, it is failing. It is only getting a very small portion of our players to play more games. why I'm saying that is that right now I'm 8th. 8th is not bad. 8th's pretty good, actually. I'm 8th, and I am currently telling myself that trying to beat out the people ahead of me is going to be an unpleasant experience where I have to play a lot and I have no guarantee of getting rewards. If you are a player who is at the bottom of the leaderboard, the difference, what would it take for somebody to get from the bottom, which gets 2,500 gold and the profile pick, to get to top 10? And if they get to top 10, they get 2,500 extra gold, and that's it. They'd have to work hard to do that. And to get from top 10 to top 3 is even harder. It doesn't reward you for putting in more work. It only rewards you for putting in more work than the dude who's immediately one behind you on the leaderboard, and that's if you are in top 3. What I am getting at here is that the end result every month is that the top 3 players have huge XP numbers. Maybe even the top 5 players have huge XP numbers. And the other players just play a little bit, casually, whenever they feel like it, and don't put in a whole lot of games because they know with certainty that they cannot get the cool reward, no matter how much they play, because somebody else has got a huge lead on them. If you went on a week vacation or were busy with life, you cannot catch up. So you end up with, a handful of players, like 5, that have a few million, 1 or 2 million XP, and everybody else is around 500,000-ish, maybe. I'm making up numbers here. I think it would be a lot better to have every player in the game have 500,000 or more XP than to have a really, really tiny portion of players play an excessive amount. And the way you accomplish that is by rewarding every player who reaches an XP benchmark. That right now, if you told me that I have to play to get into top 3 to get a gold stamped card, I would not do it because I don't want to get into a grindy, awful feeling situation where I have to battle with Duelist, who is a human being who I like, who I talk to in the Discord, and play with regularly, that I will have to get into top 3, I have to remove Duelist from top 3. You get that, right? Like, it's not just that I have to put in the games, it's that I have to put in the games to intentionally remove the opportunity for another player to get the reward. So I'm not going to put in the games. But if you told me that if I reach 1 million XP, or 2 million, or whatever the number you want it to be is, I will put in the games. Because then those rewards aren't ones that I'm stealing from other players. I also don't have to worry about other players stealing it from me, because you know what happens if you get top 3 and it's not the end of the month? You have to defend your top 3 for the rest of the month and keep playing just to keep your number ahead of the next guy. It's not fun. And I have a gold stamp card, and frankly, I don't care if other players got it, as long as they also put in work. I think every player who got a million XP the same month that I got that card deserved to get that card as well. That is my 2 cents on that. I feel very strongly about this, especially given that this is not a proper ranked leaderboard based on skill. It's just number of games queued up. Their leaderboard should not limit itself to rewarding only 50 players because you want your game to grow. And it should not reward just the top 3 players with significant rewards. You want to reward as many players as possible that are willing to engage with your game in a meaningful way. If somebody plays your game every day for a month and then you give them nothing just because some other guy played twice as much, that's not good. I don't know how else I can make myself more clear, but right now this leaderboard is set up to catch the 3 biggest fish in the ocean and ignore all the other fish. it would be better to catch every fish that weighs 100 pounds or more, so to speak. The last part of this I want to bring up is that these exclusive gold stamp cards really matter to veteran players in terms of keeping them engaged. We're going to go to my profile real quick. I own 923 out of 926 cards. You cannot keep me interested with rewards that aren't exclusive. But if you put those rewards behind a system that requires me to get into a shit-eating match with a couple other players that I would like to remain on good terms with, I don't want to do it. So please change that. And if other people feel the same way as me, please express that, because for some reason, the things that I've talked about with the leaderboard have been a problem for the game for like 8 years, at least, because it's always been a problem. I will put a link to my old video where I talk about this so you can see what I looked like practically a decade ago, talking about the exact same thing, using slightly different words and maybe slightly different complaints, but it's the same thing. Okay. That wraps up the video. Some of those changes I think are easy and cool and good and are based off of things that I think would make the game more fun and stuff. And then this leaderboard thing is a whole different can of worms. I think the leaderboard is frankly awful. It is a system that frustrates players, especially even the players who are actually going for those rewards. I'll top this off by, like, I don't know if you want to get a testimonial from other players, but like, I will say I reached top 1. It was unpleasant. I had a friend who reached top 2, who was trying to reach top 1, and quit the game for a month because of how frustrating the experience was being top 1 for 2/3 of the month and then getting shut out in the last 2/3. And just to be clear, he didn't stop playing in the last third part of the month. He continued playing, but just couldn't catch up. And he got the gold stamp card. He got the card, and it was still a frustrating experience. Please, just reward every player who puts in the hours. If somebody gets 1,000,000 XP, they deserve something. If you think 1,000,000 XP is not enough, make it 2,000,000. Even better, make tiered rewards that are fixed XP amounts. A player who gets 500,000 gets a gold stamped common that's predetermined. 1,000,000 is a gold stamped rare. 2,000,000 is a gold stamped epic or legendary, and these are pre-generated cards, predetermined cards. You could have like in a month, you could have you could have them be related to each other. You could have in a single month, you could have a gold stamped Ling Bao's Will at common for every player who gets 500,000 XP. Gold stamped Ling Bao Sage of Discipline for every player who gets 1,000,000 XP. And gold stamped Avatar of Ling Bao for every player who gets 2,000,000 XP. I promise you will get people playing more games if you do this system than your current system. You can do a case study on this. You can implement this for 1 month. And if it doesn't work, you go back to this previous system. But I guarantee you, if you tell players that if they get 1,000,000 XP, they get something cool, they'll put in the games. But if you tell players they have to be top 3 to get anything interesting, they won't put in the games, except for a couple of players. Because only 3 players can get those rewards. Only 3 or so players are going to put in the hours. And the other players are going to put in hours that are commensurate to the rewards. 5,000 gold is maybe like a week's worth of grinding games. Like, this doesn't motivate me to play the game. And again, veteran players, you all have so many cards that the gold means nothing to you. Okay, we're cutting off the rant. We're cutting it off before the video gets too long. Please respond. Folks watching the video, let me know, do you feel the same way? If you are a player who has been on the top of the leaderboard before, or has tried to be on the top of the leaderboard, or is currently on the top of the leaderboard, let me know what you think. How would you like to see the rewards distributed as a player who put in the hours? Would you prefer to get in this shit-eating match with the other couple players that want to grind with you? Or do you prefer tiered system with guaranteed rewards? Your opinions matter. My opinion might be off base. Other people might not feel the same way. That's why I want to make this video, because I want to hear what other people think. But I've kept quiet about this for a while, and I'm coming out and I'm saying it publicly again, and I had said it publicly many years ago. So yeah, the reward structure, the leaderboard system is broken. No other video game rewards players in this exclusive of a way when they could be encouraging more players to play. It is okay to reward the top 3 players with something special, but not when it is only the top 3 players, and those top 3 players should be getting something that's, I don't know. We have infinity bordered cards. Maybe give them infinity board cards or something. But the gold stamp cards, it feels obnoxious. And the leaderboard feels obnoxious, and I don't like it. Okay. That's enough. All right. Thanks, folks. It's been fun. And until next time, take it easy.